Hello everyone and welcome to the University of Arts London College of Fashion 2025 Fashion Business School postgraduate podcast sessions. These series of panel discussions have been driven and influenced by the exciting and topical fashion industry related subjects researched and delivered by our postgraduate master's programme students for their final major projects. They cover current and relevant themes shaping the wider fashion industry, such as global supply chains and policies, psychology in fashion, online environments and inclusivity, and the use of AI. We hope that you enjoy these sessions and thank you for listening.
Hello, and welcome to the London College of Fashion. I'm Kirsty Nevett, and today we're doing something a bit different and very exciting. We're showcasing 4 incredible master's projects from our postgraduate students at the Fashion Business School, all exploring a theme that's shaping how we live, how we work and how we connect, online environments and inclusivity. I have to say, when I first looked at these projects together, I was struck by how differently each student approached this theme. We've got Namir decoding why we can't stop buying beauty products after seeing them on TikTok, Deepali exploring what happens when physical stores and digital experiences merge. We're then talking about fashion for disabled communities with High Key and whether fashion brands can actually use privacy as a competitive advantage, researched by Elsa. Here's why this matters right now. We're living in this moment where online and offline aren't really separate anymore, right? Gen Z has never known a world without social media. We're shopping with AR try-ons in physical stores. Our dopamine responses are literally triggered by algorithm-curated content. And meanwhile, huge questions about who gets included and who gets left out in these digital spaces are becoming more urgent. These students aren't just studying trends. They're asking for fundamental questions about power, access, emotion, privacy, and who these online environments are actually built for. So here's how today is going to work. I'm going to introduce you to each student individually, and we'll dive into their research, what they discovered, what surprised them, and why it matters. Then we'll bring everyone together for a conversation where honestly I'm hoping they'll start connecting the dots between their different projects that maybe none of us saw coming. So let's start with the individual projects. Our first guest is Deepali, whose project is entitled Leveraging Physical Experiences to Impact Customer Engagement and Enhance Brand Perception Amongst Generation Z in the UK. From dopamine triggers to another kind of trigger, the moment you walk into a store and your phone buzzes with a personalised offer can be thrilling. Or you try on clothes through AR before you even touch that physical item. This is what's called Phygital experience, physical plus digital. Deepali is completing her MA in Global Fashion Retailing, and she's been researching how these blended experiences are landing with UK Gen Z customers. Deepali, welcome.
Hi.
So nice to have you here today to be talking about your research. So let's start to unpack some of your work, because I thought it was really exciting. I really enjoyed reading it. So first of all, for anyone who hasn't heard the term Phygital before, and I love this word, can you paint us a bit of a picture? So what does a really good Phygital retail experience actually look like?
Okay, so basically, phygital is the combination of 2 words, physical and digital, and basically it deals with whether we always think about, okay, we are doing online shopping and all, or we just go to physical stores and go to retail shops, right? But it's not just that. But when you go to the stores now, it's more of like you have so many digital technologies, whether you are purchasing something or you are just seeing something, you need to find out the informations and all. So these are the like digital technologies integrated in the physical stores. So
So it's almost sort of unconscious that you're kind of blending that. So omnichannel has moved on a stage further, would you say?
yeah, omnichannel basically deals with how it is seamlessly integrated together, but phygital is way beyond it. It deals more the physical phygital experiences.
Let's unpack this a bit more then. So you focus specifically on Generation Z in the UK. what did you learn about what this generation actually wants when they shop? Because I feel there's a lot of assumptions about Gen Z being digital native and they don't really care about physical stores. Is that true? Like, tell us what you learned.
Okay, so basically my perception about that, it was like when I first came to UK, I used to see a lot of pop-ups happening, and I feel like they love experiences and they like to enjoy in the stores. Not everything is about transactions, right? But I really wanted to, yeah, I really wanted to deep dive into it. So my course is also about retailing. So I just, studied about it, and I just had that curiosity, and that's what I really took in my dissertation and studied about it. So it's another finding of my dissertation, that it's not just the experiences they are looking for. They also want functional elements. If you want a digital experiences, it's not just okay they like to enjoy, but also they need efficient processes in the store. They need faster transactions to happen. They need convenience. They want sustainability and knowledge, and how can such experiences, digital experiences, can enhance all that aspects.
Amazing, amazing. That makes so much sense. That kind of heightened experience where you're kind of getting all that feel good factor, but also like life being functional when it's so noisy and so busy, right? I think we could definitely all relate to that. So I kind of want to start just tapping into the inclusivity angle because that's kind of the broad theme of today's podcasts. Are these technologies making shopping more accessible and inclusive, do you think? Or are they actually creating barriers? What's your thoughts? And so I'm thinking about inclusivity in terms of disability, in terms of gender roles, in terms of international transactions across the world and different cultures. What's your thoughts on these digital environments and inclusivity?
Yeah. So basically, my study took diverging roles. Like, these technologies does provide an inclusivity, because, for example, people um, the sales representatives might not have all the informations to give to the customer. But when you provide such technology and you provide such, maybe for example there's an interactive screen where people can access information, so that gives that transparency to the people.
Nice.
So it's basically inclusive in the sense, like, they know, okay, they have the product knowledge. So it's more inclusive in the sense, and not everyone can, um, and also it can help in navigation in the store, like finding out where the product is. So inclusivity in the sense, okay, it's not like, okay, you need to just talk to the customer rep to understand them. So
Yeah, I think actually the point you're making around about kind of being in that environment and how that all works is really, really interesting. I used to work in Harrods and it is a minefield, and my customers would always come and say, we are lost yet again and we're being stuck in the carpet department for hours. We can't get out of the
yeah.
carpet department. And actually, the interactive store map, being able to have that available and kind of be able to, for people to be able to read it with the Braille technology, understanding more accessible points around the store, where the good lifts are, there's not any stair points, etc. Which, that blend of that digital access and digital information with that kind of physical experience where you can still smell the beauty hall and the gorgeous leathers in the handbag department kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Any retailers that are really killing it just now from your perspective in terms of digital environments?
I feel like Selfridge is doing really great.
Oh,
You can
cool.
try on products, and like the virtual screens, you can check out the information, ingredients, how to use it. So in that way, it's really nice. And also, but a lot of brands are trying to. It's not one brand who is killing it. It's just they are just taking steps forward, like just integrate few elements here and there, but it's not fully integrated in that sense.
Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like. And actually, I think probably towards the pandemic, we're seeing some really cool examples of lots of innovation and investment happening. And then, when COVID-19 hit, the whole world went and paused and then had to re-engage kind of where investment was going just to get through being able to survive that really difficult time. But like I'm thinking back to Rebecca Minkoff's store, like that environment's really, really cool. So kind of thinking about strategic recommendations. So if you're sitting here with the CEO of a big retailer, if you had to give them one piece of advice about implementing Phygital experiences, what would it be and why?
Okay. So people love experiences. They just do not just care about the transactions. They want experiences it should be more holistic in the sense, uh, and it should be not just okay, you enjoy in the store, you just go, okay, you do some activities and all, but it should be also functional, and it should provide a seamless customer journey, and it's not like few touch points. It should be a wholesome experience for a customer. So, and to integrate it well in the store, and yeah, that will
I
be
like that idea about exactly what you said about that kind of wholesome and holistic kind of feel, where it's about kind of connecting people back to a heightened experience, but a physical environment. Amazing. Thanks so much. I could delve into your research even more, but I want to kind of continue the conversation. So we've understood the tension between digital convenience and that kind of physical presence. It's so interesting. I want to now tap into what Elsa's been looking at, which is very much kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, Elsa. So you're looking at more of the business environment as opposed to the kind of consumer environment, looking at data privacy as a competitive advantage. So what I wanted to understand there was, let's start out with your core argument is that fashion brands use data privacy as a competitive advantage. And actually fascinating because usually privacy is framed as either a legal requirement or as a barrier to business. Can you tell me a bit more about your thinking here?
Yeah, of course. So I think that's exactly why I wanted to study it because, well, I'm very aware that data privacy isn't the most glamorous of subjects. It's not exactly super exciting. When people think of data privacy, they think of pop-up windows and they think of like really lengthy text and legal text, as you say. But I think, honestly, the initial idea came from the fact that we've had so many data breaches in fashion recently. We had the M&S one, which was huge, and we had one at Harrods as well, actually.
Yeah.
And I think there was 7 in the first 7 months, and they were really big retailers. And I could kind of compare that with like the sort of worsening sentiment, consumer sentiment regarding data privacy. And it was obvious that people were feeling more distrustful of brands with good reason. After all these hacks happen and their data is leaked, I understand that consumers then feel a bit more hesitant to then share information. And I think that's really poignant for fashion brands, especially e-commerce, which is what I was studying, because they are data-driven entities. You know, they survive of data. They need consumer data to better hone their marketing and their products and just their communications with consumers. So it's sort of that tension as well between what happens when consumers stop providing the data that brands need, and at the same time the fact that with Phygital experience, for example, people want these kind of really personalized, really developed digital experiences, but at the same time they don't want to give their data to like customize those experiences, if you know what I mean. It's called like the personalization versus privacy paradox. So it's like people want personalization, but they also want privacy. So how do you do both at the same time? So that was sort of like the initial idea, and then for me it was just common sense that like if you provide better privacy and protection for consumers, they're going to trust you more, and then you are going to perform better. It was like 2 + 2 = 4 for me.
Actually, I think the way you've talked about it takes that dichotomy from 2 + 2 = 4 to you've made 2 + 2 = 5 and make it make sense.
Maybe.
I think that's what I love when we start to talk to students collectively about the research, is we can start to see these beautiful kind of dots joining across these kind of strategic points of importance that, we know the industry is really grappling with at the moment. So I just want to dig in a bit deeper to the current landscape. So what is the current state of data privacy within fashion e-commerce? So are brands handling consumer data well, or is it kind of a mess? So you've mentioned kind of M&S and Harrods, which have been really big in the press in recent examples. But yeah, what's your kind of view on the current state?
Okay, so the general overview is that they're not doing it bad. They're legally compliant, but legally compliant doesn't necessarily mean good, because I mean, it's kind of leads into accessibility, but like a lot of people don't have the capability, time, know-how of reading really lengthy text, and it does sort of make it very inaccessible for people. So that's an element to contend with. But I actually was able to speak to someone who was at M&S during the breach, and she was a data analyst. And she said something that was sort of echoed by all my participants in my interviews, which was that a lot of fashion institutions, especially the big ones like Harrods and Marks and Spencer's, they are national treasures, but they're also very old, and their technology is so old, and they do not have the proper safety procedures in place. And another one of my participants said that data breaches and technology issues until very recently had seemed like a tech issue. It was like, this is what social media companies have to deal with. This is what apps have to deal with, not fashion brands. And I think it's been a real wake-up call that brands really need to start taking it as seriously as like Meta takes data seriously. Well, that could be that's maybe not the best example.
Conversation. No, absolutely. I think you made that point so interestingly though about understanding these more incumbent businesses and how difficult it is for them to kind of move their infrastructures around new ways of working or updated and refreshed viewpoints on how we should be working versus the kind of new agile direct to consumer brands are able to come in and do everything right from the word go. And it's a really important point and something I think strategically really matters because fashion is such a kind of developed industry in some respects and then really new and exciting in other ways. Fascinating, Elsa. Thanks for kind of taking us on that journey to understand this a bit better. I wonder if I can kind of just pivot though. One of the areas I know as a researcher within your strategic fashion marketing masters you were interested in was third spaces, which connects so nicely within what we're talking about today. So I wonder, can you explain what that means to you and how we can maybe understand that in the context of kind of retail strategy, brand strategy, privacy, online environment?
So third spaces was something I researched more within another module where we were looking more at branding communications. And I mean, I'm sure there are parallels we can draw between privacy and third spaces, especially like online third spaces, I think. But to answer your question, third spaces is sort of a place that is not home and it's not work. It's somewhere in between. And it's something I feel very passionately about because I feel like we have less and less all the time, especially in London. It feels like you have to pay to be anywhere. And I think that's quite sad, especially for for younger people, but people of all ages, but having so much to socialize where you don't feel like you have to consume and you can just be a human, which isn't a park. And, the weather here doesn't help. You kind of need indoor spaces to do that. So, yeah, it's something that I found really interesting. And I think it really links into fashion and fashion marketing and even what you were studying with Phygital experiential things, because those kind of do provide a way of creating a shopping experience in a place where you almost don't feel like you have to consume because you're there to experience it. And I mean, from the business perspective, it does make people shop more because, they're having fun and whatever. But I think from a human perspective, it's really nice to be able to create these kind of experiences or these spaces for people where they feel like they're part of a community, a brand community, and they feel like they're understood. And also it just kind of takes the pressure off shopping or consuming, and you kind of just exist in this very human space and you can socialize. I think it links pretty well with fashion marketing because it can provide a new way of connecting with consumers.
Yeah, it's so interesting, I think, as well, because when from a strategic perspective, I feel like brands can provide or stores can provide people a place to just hang out and socialize and be happy, or perhaps even be on their own as well, just being in a reflective point. I think Apple stores do that so beautifully, all those gorgeous plants all around. You can always get Wi-Fi, you can always plug in. They don't require you to buy a single thing. You can just exist. And there's something so, so nice about that. But also those positive experiences will connect you so nicely back with the brand. So do them well and do them right. And yeah, it can be really powerful as well. I think Selfridges providing a cinema, yes, you're buying a cinema ticket, but it's a lot cheaper than going to some other cinemas in London, and it's kind of part of that all packaged experience, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
London has got its own way of thinking, hasn't it? So I'm now going to pivot back to privacy. And yeah, I have to say your research took my brain on a bit of a journey, to say the least. But I wanted to ask you a bit of a tough question around trying to unpack the connection to inclusivity. So Does privacy affect different communities differently? Like, are there inclusivity implications that we have to talk about when it comes to data?
Yes. So when it comes to inclusivity in terms of data privacy, I think the thing that comes to mind, first of all, is how, well, this was from a report that I read by the ICO, which is like the governmental body that kind of protects data and information. And they did this really interesting report that found that during times of economic uncertainty, people who are less financially stable sometimes feel pressured to give more data because it provides a better service, and it kind of leaves them kind of feeling like they have to give data under duress because they can't pay for the premium option, they can't pay for the membership where it kind of removes the ads or it removes the, the cookies or whatever it is. And I think that's a very key factor to consider, because at the end of the day, data is money. The richest men on earth are rich because of data, our data. So I think there's an element there where I think it's not very fair and it's not very inclusive. And then a very obvious one, which I don't know why I never thought of, was just visually. A lot of pop-ups, a lot of banners are very hard for people who are visually impaired to see. And there's quite a few journals I read on this. And it feels like such a glaring mistake. So often it's like 2 centimeters of a banner at the bottom.
Yeah.
And the text, the way it's written, the font, the formatting, the colors, they make it really hard for people to be able to see. Me, myself, I need glasses and sometimes I can't see them, and I don't have an impairment to speak of.
Oh, I've got to that age now where I walk about with 2 pairs of glasses on all the time because most of the time I can't see a thing. But I think you mentioned such a valid point about, this is what I love about our attitude as educators and working in partnership with our researchers and with industry to understand climate, racial and social justice and the impact, particularly around social justice, for people to be able to be treated with the same level of equity as others. I think as a busy mom, quite often I'm like, yeah, fine, accept, go, and not taking a moment just to sit back. But then my academic head will say, well, wait a minute, Kirsty, where is this going and what are you getting into?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I think what would be really nice now is to shift gears. I just want to see how we can intertwine some of the conversations we've had between the two of you, which would be really amazing. So we've been talking about retail design, we've been talking about consumer behaviour, we've been talking about experience, we've been talking about inclusivity, we've of course been talking about data. All of these are really grounded in the commercial world of fashion. So I want to now take the conversation over to think a little bit about the things that kind of connect across your two projects. So Deepali, Phygital experiences and about brands controlling that consumer journey, and Elsa, data privacy, fundamentally about who controls that information. So a question to both of you, if I could, is in these online and hybrid environments that you're studying, who has control and who should have it?
I think currently who has control is the brands, or not even the brands, it's the data storage systems, the software as a system companies.
Sure.
It's kind of those are the people who have the power, and it should be with the consumer, at least in some part. Their own personal data, they should have some say, at least a more sort of like they should be more switched on to what they're giving away, basically. That's how I would describe it. How about you?
Yeah, the customers are the central point of the business and all. So they should have the point of view, and how the sensitive information is used is really important, and the
Yes.
brand should really value that. And yeah, the retailers and the brands have the power right now, which needs to change.
And actually, the two projects that you've both been studying can't exist without each other. In order to make amazing digital experiences, and thinking to like Farfetch, looking at the store of the future with the beacons that you could go in and instantly that brand would know who you were, what you'd bought before, what your kind of setup was, the little black book that we used to keep written down inside our blazer pockets at Harrods all becomes digitalized and less about, and the privacy of the consumer believes they've got the kind of control of that.
Yeah.
But actually, so, you need to have that kind of exchange for both to work. But interesting to kind of understand about that dichotomy between who should own that experience and who does. How can we flip it? How can we give control back to the consumer? Or is that right? How do we level out the control? What do you think?
I feel the customers should really, we have social media now. We can make or break the trends. Like, we customers can do that. So I feel like we should voice it out to the brands and really place importance to how our information is used by the brands, because I also don't like when I'm going on the uh any website and they ask me, oh, we are having these cookies and all, accept and all, and do not consent is comes later, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very annoying, and I feel like, why do you need so much information about me?
Mm.
It's very close to me, and I feel invasion of that, right?
Mm.
So I feel like we should voice it out, and we all together can voice it out, because the brands have that, that they have the bar right now.
Mm.
And
You make a really interesting point there, because I can't help but think that how much do you control your data? Like, it's a bit like if we unpack this as individuals. So, you can go and ask HR for a copy of your file. How do you go about that? What's in that file? How do you understand all the information? So even if you are giving your consent and you're seeing what's being held, how do you unpack and make that work? So like the balance of power has got to be somewhere in the middle, right? And equally, the brands have to say, this is how we're using your data. This is what we want to give you back. This is about kind of what your experiences are telling you. Gen Z came up in most of the projects that I've been studying under this topic today. And I'm fascinated because Gen Z are the adults that are going to be shaping the business strategy of the future, and we're really excited at. That's why we're educators, because we believe that you guys are going to go out and make that true difference. What do you think they're looking for in terms of that relationship with the brands? How do you think they're expecting to be managed inclusively and with the right level of respect?
So I think when it comes to data privacy, I don't think Gen Z really cares. It is definitely more of the sort of older millennial Gen X. My mum really cares about this, for example. She's the one who really put me on the topic of data privacy. And I understand that a lot of people my age maybe don't care about it too much. But I think people are becoming more protective, and more protective of the way they behave on social media. So I do see that changing. Well, I think maybe it starts from social media. I think that's kind of like the thing. People are becoming more aware of how social media uses the data, and that spans across all generations. And I don't see why that wouldn't kind of bleed into fashion brands. As fashion and technology converges, I think people will kind of bring forward those kind of concerns that they had for social media towards fashion. So I do see it changing. I feel like, talk to me in 3 years' time. I feel like I'm going to be right about this.
As an old millennial, I can totally connect with that, because I think it's interesting. There's some parts of me that are like, where's my data being held? Who knows what they need to know about me? And what does that mean in terms of my family's security? But also, if I whisper things I really want for Christmas into my phone, or even better, my husband's phone, is that going to respond? Like, there's times where I'm like, have my data, it's fine.
I know.
Interesting. So Gen Z, in terms of your project, Deepali, talk to me about what are they thinking about in terms of how they want to be treated and have relationships with brands in the future?
I feel like many people are going towards the sustainability road, and they want okay, how our products are made. We need to know the procedures, what all ingredients are going. So they need transparency in that, and so the brands are focusing more on that, and also like people who have any disabilities and all, and how they can provide that shopping experience which is inclusive to them by focusing on their needs.
Yeah.
Is important.
Yeah, that was actually exactly what I was kind of discussing with a bit of my dissertation, was that like we should maybe view data privacy as a form of sustainability, included into like CSR practices, because at the end of the day, storing data is so bad for the environment. Like the amount of water and energy that's necessary to store data, it could actually become the new form of ESG, CS kind of thing. So yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
I want to take another swerve, if I may, a final one. thinking about the emotional economy. So my practice in terms of subject discipline is around consumer behaviour and fashion. And I'm particularly fascinated by the marketing power of emotions and kind of deep psychology. So Deepali, your brand perception and how your consumer connects with that brand, that connects with that retailer is deeply emotional because it's how they feel in that moment. What sort of things are senses are being activated by experience. And Elsa, like privacy violations, sorry. That's a serious issue. That does kind of pull out different emotions. It might bring out emotions of kind of fear, anxiety, anger, all sorts of different things. So are we perhaps living in an emotional economy where brands and platforms are deliberately managing our feelings, commercializing our feelings perhaps? And if so, what does that mean about how we need to protect ourselves or design better systems for the future?
That is such a good point. I hadn't thought about it. And yeah, I think you're so right that they're sort of the emotions that are at play when it comes to at least data privacy are ones that are usually, fear, scared, worry, invasion of privacy. And like imagine what could happen if you could transform those feelings from negative to positive. And it's just the classic case of, you could turn this into a competitive advantage for the brand. You could make them feel safe, and you can make them feel understood and respected, and how those emotions could transform how the consumer views your brand. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. O'Shaughnessy talk about the fact that if a consumer believes that their emotions are being cared for and impacted in a positive way, then they want to build a better relationship with the brand. It's like we are with people. Like if we are being respected and loved and cared for and listened to, we will reciprocate that love and that joy.
I completely agree with you. Like the word you use, emotional economy, is true. And more and more brands, have these things they try to integrate into, through the actions. Like there are new words like multisensory marketing and experiential territories and all. They have such servicescapes and all. Like there's so much of the brands which they're doing. They're playing with our, feelings, our emotions, and we don't know about it. And we customers don't know. And we what it can lead to. It can lead to the purchases and all. So the customers need to have the knowledge of it and understand, like, okay, they are emotionally, engaging us and providing that experiences. It is important, but the customers needs to be aware of it, like you said, about how it can be positive and also negative sometimes. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think awareness is interesting because actually, you might be in an environment where you're having a great experience and you're shopping with friends and there's lots of interesting things happening in that moment in time, and you make a purchase as a result. Now, we know that if that purchase was wrong, a consumer's going to go home, they're going to feel guilty, they might even feel angry or disappointed in the brand. That's going to come back. That's not a great way of running a business at all. But if it's kind of been done in a point where it's meaningful and it's connected, then it can be truly, truly powerful. I want to get practical for a minute, which is not something I do very often, but let's, for the purpose of this podcast and for people listening, let's get practical. So you've all been diving into this deep research and identified all these problems, exploring great solutions, which we're loving. If you could snap your fingers and implement one single change in online or retail environments based on your research, what would it be?
I feel transparency. Brands needs to be transparent to the customers. It's the need of the hour, and definitely it's the future of retail. Transparency.
Amazing. Thank you. Elsa?
So I think for me, it's very sector specific or topic specific, but it would be better leadership and training for brands when it comes to data privacy, because that's just the main thing that came across during my research was that people do not know what they're doing when it comes to data privacy. They do very basic GDPR training once a year. And despite that, most of the data breaches that occurred from like senior executives accidentally clicking on a phishing scam. And it's sort of like just some very basic training would go a long way in data privacy.
No, I think you're right. I think what is so fascinating about both of your research projects, in fact, all the research projects that we're kind of featuring in our PG showcase over the next few while, is that you guys are deeply connected to what we can do to make the world a better place to live in. And I think from an inclusivity point of view, I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be. So, Deepali, Elsa, I could talk to you for hours again, but for the purpose of today, thank you so much. We'll be back with part 2, delving into online environments and inclusivity, and there'll be a bit more detail shortly.